It's Bethany with Saturday Night Live, and we're back for episode 3. A few weeks ago, I did an Instagram poll over on my stories over there, and it was split evenly, 50-50. Half the voters wanted to know what my tips and tools were, and the other half wanted to see my blanket projects. So we did the tips and tools last week. We're going to do the blanket projects this week. Before we get into the video, please excuse my hair. It's doing its own thing. I wanted to kind of give a little update and a few announcements. So, got my notes here. I decided that I sat down and really looked at my schedule and kind of my workload and my mental load, and thought, if I want this to be a continuing thing and I didn't want it to be stressful and I wanted it to be fun, instead of doing weekly, I was going to do bi-weekly starting in December. So I am going to start the bi-weekly videos on December 16th. So it'd be the 16th, and then the 30th would be the December videos, and then I'd go from there. Every 2 weeks we'd get a video. I kind of wanted to break these videos up into themes. One theme being kind of just a sit and chat type of thing. I would work on my project, you could work on your project, or just listen, as I talk about the things I'm reading, the games I'm playing, what's going on in the fiber community, and kind of show maybe my acquisitions, things that I've purchased recently. And then the other one would be more of a breakdown of my works in progress, my finished objects, anything I'm planning to knit on coming up. So those two different videos, the first one, which should be more like an open crafting type of time, I'm going to be calling studio session. So anytime you get an announcement or go to check the channel, if you see studio session, that's going to just be more of a chatting type of session. I'm not really going to be showing much off, except for if I got any kind of knitting or fiber mail that week or that month. And then the other one is going to be called the wrap up. A little bit of a fiber pun there. I know that's a really bad one. But that one's going to be where I show off any works in progress, how far I've gotten on them since the last month, finished objects, any items that I finished and blocked, so that you can see the full finished project, and then kind of be talking about what I plan to do upcoming, those types of things. So now that that's out of the way, let's get right into my blanket works in progress. And WIP, when I say work in progress or WIP, they're the same thing. So WIP stands for work in progress, and FO stands for finished objects, in case you're not familiar with the terminology. So I've got my couch open, and I'm kind of surrounded by things. So it'll be a little bit awkward kind of reaching for things, because blankets are large, they take up a lot of room, but I love working on them because they do take up a lot of yarn, and you kind of stay warm as you're working on them. So I have 5 blankets that I'm currently in various stages of completion on. 4 are crocheted and 1 is knitted. If you can't sense a theme, I tend to crochet blankets more, whereas I knit garments and accessories. The reason for that is crochet takes up more yarn per stitch, because you are not just making loops, you are making loops on loops on loops. So you are wrapping a lot more yarn for every stitch when you crochet. I also tend to use it because it is a lot faster. Yes, you are using more yarn, and yes, you are going faster. So it's just a very different technique. I tend to use a bit thicker yarns when I'm crocheting, and I'm a little bit more comfortable using thicker yarns with the crochet hook than I am with knitting needles. So, okay, let's get into it. I'm gonna show you my first blanket here. This is called the, pardon me, I'm really bad at remembering names, so I try to keep, it's called the Northeasterly. My paper pattern is really beat up. It's by Skaynanigans, or Melissa Alexander Loomis. And this is not a new pattern if you're familiar with knitting and crochet patterns. This came out several years ago as a great way to knit mini skeins or kind of stash bust, or like use up any of your scraps. So I have been working on this for literally years. This is my oldest, probably my oldest project. And I'm fine with that. I am fine and comfortable with the fact that this is going to be a long-term project because I only put scraps into it. So I'm going to try to hold it up so you can see. The way this is worked, it's worked in panels. So this is the very first panel, and you just knit as long as you plan to. And then what I do is I put the stitches on some scrap yarn, and then I start on the next panel. And so all of these stitches are all on scrap yarn except for this panel, which I'm currently working on. So it is very scrappy, which I'm perfectly fine with because I love color, and I don't care that it clashes or anything. I keep it in this bin with the next several balls that'll be going in the blanket. Have a crochet hook in here in case I drop any stitches. Apparently this was the next one I was going to start with, and I pulled the needle out because it broke. So, but this is my only currently my only knitted blanket. I have plans for other knitted blankets coming up in the future that I already have patterns picked out for, but I'm not sure what yarn I want to use for that yet, whether I want to use something that's already in my stash or want to buy specific yarn for it. Not sure. Anyway, this is my one knitted blanket. It's called the Northeasterly. It is a great blanket. There are several tutorials on YouTube that walk you through how to do the certain stitches and how to connect the different panels, because it is a connect as you go type of project. You're not just knitting one panel and then connecting it later. You're joining it as you go. I meant, okay. So anyway, that's that one. Don't plan to see this finished at anytime soon, but I will. If I start working on it again, I will show progress as we go. The next one I'm going to show you is my other scrap blanket. This one, if you watch my first video, I kind of walked you through my yarn collection, and down here in the back is my acrylic Caron Simply Soft stash, which I typically only use for charity knitting blankets that will be auctioned off for charity, or I use them for baby blankets because it stands up and it comes in like a bajillion colors. So I have over the years knitted a lot of blankets with it and given them away, and I was just sick of looking at all of the extra scraps of it everywhere. And so what I did is I gathered up all the scraps into this basket that I picked up at one of the fiber shows. And funny enough, I had 20 different colors. And because I play Dungeons and Dragons, I have plenty of 20-sided die lying around. So I made up, it's kind of squished, I made up a little chart. I wrote down all of the colors in random order from 1 to 20 and pulled out my 20-sided dice, and I roll it every time I want to knit on it. I will roll a 20-sided dice to correspond to the color that I'm going to add to the blanket, and then I roll a 6-sided dice to tell me how many stripes of that color. So here it is so far. I'm not using a pattern. I am just using a simple crocheted seed stitch I guess it would be moss stitch. It's single crochet, chain one, single crochet, chain one, and then you do the opposite on the pass back. So you kind of get this nice skipped stitch. And surprisingly, how crazy I went about this, it looks, I'm really a fan of this method. I really like this stitch, and I've got so much yarn still left. If I get to the end and it's long enough, I'm just going to start adding border stripes to it. But this is the way I'm trying to get rid of my acrylic scraps. I am not a yarn snob in the case that I do knit and crochet with pretty much any fiber except for mohair because it makes me itch. I will knit with acrylic. There's nothing wrong with it. It's long lasting. I have a cat and a teenager, and my teenager has friends, and we eat on the couch, and I take the blankets out into the yard to lay down on, and they go in the back of the car, and there's no reason why you can't knit with acrylic or crochet with acrylic. It does the job just fine, in my opinion. So if I'm going to be knitting for the house or for a child or for someone who's going to want a blanket to take a beating, I will knit with acrylic. So this is stuff you can pick out at your local craft store, Joann's, Michael's, what have you. So anyway, that is my second blanket. I haven't picked this up for a few months because the next one that I show you has been preoccupying a lot of my time, and I am so close to being done with it that I am just like focused, ready to work on it. Ugh. Okay, this next one, I'm going to take you on a journey. I have had these mini skeins for a Harry Potter club for so long, for literally, at least 6 years. I want to say at least 6 years. And at first I was going to make a scarf. Then I ripped it out and I hated it. I didn't like how the colors flowed together, and it was going to be so long I wasn't going to enjoy it. Then I was going to make a shawl. And because they were all mini skeins, some pieces of the shawl were going to be really small and some were going to be really stretched out, and I didn't like how that worked. So then I was going to make a hybrid scarf slash shawl. So it was a wide scarf, but it was a wide shawl that was more rectangular, but it was long like a scarf. Still didn't like it. Tried adding extra yarn to it to kind of offset the pattern. Still didn't like it. Then I was gonna make a cardigan out of it and use the mini skeins for like sleeves and maybe a back panel. Still didn't like it. Regardless, these mini skeins have been through so much until one day I just said, forget it. I had made up Excel charts, I had made up Word documents, I had made up diagrams, making sure that I had the yarn in the order that I received it, with the name corresponding to what each color was, so that I could knit it all in this order. And I was so organized about it and so anal retentive about keeping the yarn in the order. I had photographs, I had charts, until I realized that I was just fighting my own creativity on this project. So I grabbed up all the yarn, tossed it in a bucket, pulled out however many would fit in my hand, which happened to be 6, and started crocheting. And this is what happened. So I started with 6 and said, you know what? 6 works. We're going to do panels of 6 of the mini skeins, and then we'll do 6 rows of a solid, and then 6 more mini skeins, 6 rows of a solid. And this is kind of what it's morphed into. It is the craziest thing I have ever crocheted. I didn't want to buy any yarn for this. This was purely stash busting. So I'm gonna try to hold it so you can see. So what I did is, this is the first 6 minis. I don't know what colors they are, and I don't care because this is just really fun. And then I had these 2 skeins of just random yarn that I had left over from a project that I didn't finish. Is full skeins of yarn sitting in my stash. And I'm like, you know what, it's fine. I don't really love this camel color, and this gray color, I don't know what I had it set aside for, but it works. They're neutrals, they work just fine. And so I've continued all the way through. This is the middle. This is a new color gray that I had in my stash that does not match this old gray, but it's fine because this is the middle. And then I've just kind of continued. I had a second skein of this tan that I added in because I needed a second skein of it. I ran out because this blanket is huge, which I'm perfectly fine with. I cannot wait to bundle up under this and watch TV or put on a knitting podcast while I'm sitting here on the couch. But I have, at first I was carrying it around in this. Obviously it doesn't fit in this anymore. This is how much I have left of the tan. And this is how much I have left of the dark gray. But that's okay. I think I'll have just enough because I have 3 more sets of mini skeins, and that is all. And then I found these 2 blues in my stash, and I'm going to use these as a border. So yeah, I am loving this. I'm loving how chaotic it is. And it's just, I'm flying through it. I've got my stitch marker, or my scissors, and my needle, and my my crochet hook, and I did almost no calculations on this except for 6 worked just fine because it was a 12-month mini skein club, and I think we got, I want to say we got 12. No, we didn't get 12 every month because in the middle here, there's 5 on each side of this middle stripe and not 6. But it worked out. That's pretty much the only calculations I did, other than to kind of measure how long I wanted it and how many rows and how many inches this first section of 6 mini skeins took, to kind of figure out how much of the solids I needed to put between them. So it was a little bit of math there, but not enough that I was stressing myself out. Because really what it came down to with these minis was that I was trying too hard to make them work. When, because they were so chaotic and there's so many different colors going on, I was trying to fit them into something that they could be and make them work, and it just wasn't. But either way, I'm going to have a cool, fun blanket once this is done. Just for me. My first one just for me. Because I always make blankets for everyone else, or for, for the family. And this will be the first one that is my blanket just for Bethany. I'm going to take a bit of a detour. I guess it's not a detour. We're still working on blankets, but I'm going to show you the next 2 blankets are very closely related. And that's because they're temperature blankets. Now I know, the temperature blanket trend has been around for a while, and everybody's got their own spin on it. And when they first came out, it was, an 8 to 10 color rainbow, and they're huge, and it's a row for every day of either the high or the low or the average temperature. And no one, you were either in the camp where you started but never finished, or you finished but begrudgingly. But ever since I've watched about a year and a half ago, Toni Lipsey, TL Yarncraft's video on how she changes her temperature blankets every year, I've really kind of stuck to them. And so I have 2 going right now, one for this year because this is the year I got married, and one for 1989. That's the year that I was born. And the one for this year, I made it big enough to fit, or I'm making it big enough to fit on our king size bed. The one for my birth year, I am making in a smaller gauge so that I can have it here in my office. So I'm going to show you the one that from my year first, because it is a little smaller and it's closer. So what I did is I followed Tony's advice. I did this on Excel. I just kind of went down and through each day, and I wrote the different color, and then I'm recording the temperature. But I went to the Weather Underground website and I printed out the temperature information for each day to kind of fill this out. Luckily, they went back to 1989 for me. And move my stuff. This is my palette. I went with pinks and grays, obviously, because that's the color of my office, is pinks and grays and whites. Excuse me. My throat is really dry. And so far, I've only been working on this for about a week, and I've gotten to January 20th. So not far. This is the first day. This is January 1st. I am following Tony's, from TL Yarncraft, her pattern and kind of tutorial for her pixel blanket for this. So this is the first row, and then after this I will join back at the bottom and knit the second row, and I'll show you what that's like on the second blanket, because I'm using the same excuse me, I'm using the same technique on the second blanket, just with bigger yarn, a bigger hook, and different colors. Sorry about that, I had to get some water. I don't know why my throat's so dry. It's raining outside. But I chose this one. I chose to do with a yarn that I've never worked with before. And let me pull out a skein here. I shouldn't say I've never worked with this. I've worked with this, but not in this weight. So this is from Knit Picks. It is Swish DK weight. 100% superfine, superwash merino wool. So this is washable. I don't know how often I'll wash it. It'll stay in my office pretty much. But I have worked with Swish before, but in their sock weight. In fact, I use it a lot for, I'm dropping things over here. I use it a lot for hats. And their solids come in so many colors. It's great for hats. But I'm really liking how soft the yarn is. I had to go up a hook size to get a gauge that wasn't super stiff. Okay, last blanket coming up. This is the big guy. This is the biggest blanket I think I have ever made before. It's not even close to being finished yet. Let's see, how far have I gotten on this? I have gotten to March 17th. I'm a little bit behind, but that's okay. My goal for this blanket is to finish by our last show and tell date for my Fiber Guild, which is mid-May. So I've got time to work on this, and excuse me. And anyway, here are the colors. This is gonna be a clumsy episode. These are the colors I'm working with. I went for more jewel tones, and because Ohio has such a vast temperature range, I had to make sure that I had enough of a variety to make it work. The ivory's in there just for one square for our wedding date. But here it is so far. Again, I'm using the same pixel type of pattern that Tony shows on her channel and on her blog. So you can kind of see how it looks coming together. Obviously, I've done January through March, this one random day when it was pretty warm. But I am just here on top. So I have a few more squares left to go before I start the next row. This is going to be really, really big because it's a king size blanket, but I have a little added something to go on it. I ordered these online, and I'll link the Etsy page that I ordered these from because they're really cool. Haven't opened them yet, so you're gonna hear a little bit of crackling. So I ordered these online, and they're little buttons. Well, I shouldn't say little, they're huge. That say the temperature blanket for the location and the year. And then they also have them for the month. So each of these will go on the first month for the first day of the month for each one. And then this one I'll put on the last square or somewhere in the middle. And then I think that's it. I did order buttons for my other temperature blanket, my personal one for my year. They haven't come in yet. They're coming from Australia. Those ones are small, a lot smaller, about the size of my fingertip, and are, instead of wooden, they're acrylic. And that one will actually have my name on it and the year. So, because the squares are so much smaller, I mean, here are the squares kind of next to each other. It's not that much smaller, but you know, it's smaller. So this button takes up like the whole square. So I got a lot smaller buttons, and they'll be a little bit more subtle on my blanket than on our blanket. I think that's gotta be all the blankets that I have. Yeah, that's as I show 5 blankets casually. Those are all the blankets I'm currently working on. Like I said, I have some that I am thinking about for the future. Either stash busting some more or going out and physically buying the yarn that I want for the blankets. I kind of want to stray away from that. I would like to get to the point where, not that I don't have any stash, because I do like having yarn on hand for when I am feeling creative and kind of just want to have to use what I have first before I go out and splurge on a blanket's quantity of yarn. So yeah, this, you can't see this section right here. These are my Dungeons and Dragon clump yarn. These are supposed to be a really long cardigan. They may turn into a blanket. I'm not sure yet. I still have 2 more that I'm waiting on. Yeah, 2 more that I'm waiting on. That'll be next month. I'll get those. And then I think once they're here, I'll have to check the yardage to see if it'll actually work for a cardigan or if I need to rethink it and make it into a blanket. I'm also going to be over here setting up a blanket ladder behind the couch to kind of show off my blankets and my finished objects as they get done. I have one more video that is going to be coming up on, let's see if I can check my notes what date it is. It'll be, what page? I closed my notebook. It will be December 2nd will be the next video, and I will be posting all of the things up here. I will be going through these bins to show you my past finished projects. Some of my favorite ones, some of the ones that I really don't wear or use anymore, some of the ones that were just made on a whim type of thing. So yeah, look forward to that. If you are curious about when we are uploading videos, I am setting them to upload Friday at midnight. So that 12:01 Saturday, you can watch Saturday Night Live. So yeah, if you like what you see, come hang out with us next time. Drop a comment down below and let me know something that you'd like me to talk about, or something that you have a question about, or just a comment. It's nice to hear from you. Nice to say hi. I'm gonna leave it here, and I'll see you next time. Bye.